Hello, Atmore. It's the Lloyd and Friends show. And now here's your host, Lloyd Alberton.
Hello, Atmore. This is Lloyd Alberton, and my guest this morning is Miss Sharon Poulsen. Poulsen. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All these years I've known you, and I've known Jerry, and never have been able to be sure about it. I always wanted to call it SEN, but it is SEN.
It is
not
SEN.
SON. Okay. Falk. She was a Sharon Falk, and Sharon and I actually went to school together back in Walnut Hill back in the day.
Yes,
when
absolutely.
we were young.
Long ago.
That was long ago. But I'm happy to have Sharon on the Lloyd and Friends program today because I think she's going to bring some real interesting things to the table. I love teachers, and I had Miss Cunningham on yesterday. Hope you get a chance to listen to her. You know, when we get her post. She'll be on Saturday's program. But Sharon, you're retired, right?
I am.
She's a retired teacher and a former student, a native of Atmore, and what I really love about what Sharon does now is this theater. I'm kind of a frustrated movie star. I love movies and theater. I had a chance to live in New York for a few years and got a chance to actually go to some Broadway plays. And you guys just do a wonderful job over here. And you're in, if not everyone, almost every play.
Thank you very much. And yes, I do a lot.
And so I'm very jealous that you've become. Can I get your autograph before you leave?
Absolutely.
Sharon Poulsen. Sharon, just give me a quick bio about. You're from Atmore. You grew up here, I think.
I grew up in Walnut Hill.
Walnut Hill. Okay.
I grew up about 2 miles from Ernest Ward, and went to school there for 12 years. Was out for 3 years in college and went back to teach there for 38 years.
38 years.
Kind of unusual for somebody to spend 50 years of their life in one location.
Well, did you consider yourself fortunate to go back to or was that something you welcomed?
Oh, yes, absolutely. That was wonderful.
Really?
It was home.
Still
is.
I know you taught PE.
I taught PE for 20 years, and then I went back to recertify, and I moved into the library and was there for the last 18 years.
Really? Well,
Yes.
I didn't see you going from PE to librarian.
That is kind of a big stretch for people usually, but I loved it.
Well, I think of girls' PE, of course, back in our day. Billy Freeman taught PE back then, didn't she?
Yes.
When you were in school?
Yes.
And, of course, Billy was sort of an aggressive, you didn't mess with her. She'd knock you out.
True.
And I always loved her, but I couldn't see her being a librarian.
I told myself that I wanted to teach PE until I could transition into something else. I didn't want to be there so long that I couldn't do what I was teaching.
Well, it's a lot of physical to
Yes.
PE. Yeah.
So I got out much earlier than I
understand that,
anticipated, but it was a great change. Loved it.
So you taught school over there from what years?
1973, 74, through 38 years.
74.
To 11.
So you had a lot of kids. I know
lot.
you had my children.
Yes.
When they were going over there. I think they were mid-80s in there when they finished school.
I saw the school transition from K-12 to just, high school and then through to middle school. So.
Yeah. Well, you were one of those, so many of us in those days came from other schools. Now, I went to the 6th grade at Davisville and transferred, 7th grade. And then we had the brat kids come over in the 10th grade. They finished, they went to the 9th grade. Mm-hmm. But you were right there, just like my wife, Gwen. She went there from 1st to the 12th.
1st through 12th.
So it was a little school that had 1st grade to 12th grade all the way through.
Yes, we were unique in the county.
Were we?
For a lot of years,
really
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know they had that one down there where the elementary school was. It was a double doors, and I never went through those doors. All the years I went to junior high and high school, I never went through those doors. I don't know whether that was a formal thing or...
That was a rite of passage.
When
you got to move up past the double doors,
you got to come through those doors.
You were in the big time.
And it was a big time.
It
back
was.
in our
It
day.
really was.
When I went from 6th grade to 7th grade, boy, that probably is right in there with the biggest events of my life, going to the 7th grade at Walnut Hill.
Yes, big transition.
Yeah. Now, you grew up in Walnut Hill.
I did.
Your family, who were your parents?
Raymond and Opal Falk.
Okay. And where'd you live? Where'd you grow up?
I lived about a mile south of Ernest Ward on Highway 97.
Okay. You're on Highway 97.
So I was right there at the school, and when I got married, I moved about 2 miles further down the road, and later on we moved about 2 miles north of there. So I've lived in the same area pretty much my entire life.
Well, I think that's a wonderful thing. Sometimes I wish I had done that. I went off in the service early in life, and then I oftentimes had to go other places to get a job.
True.
But finally came back here, and those that have stayed around here, I think there are some really strong roots that I'm kind of envious of.
Yes.
Sometimes I
Yes.
think I wish I had made a way to do that.
Yes.
Well, so I know you have at least one brother. Is it Tommy?
Tommy passed away
Tommy.
about 2 years ago. Yes, I have a half brother and half sister. Had a half brother and half sister. My half siblings were Sharplesses. Felix Sharpless was my half brother, and June Sharpless McCann, who is still living, is my half sister.
Okay, I didn't
She
know,
lives in Pensacola.
I didn't know that.
They were both much older than us, so we were almost like two families. They were more like a mother and father to us. I think my brother was maybe 16 when I was born, and my sister was 18 when I was born. So,
Well, that's a big difference.
Yes.
So how old was Tommy? Was he close to you?
yes, he was 16 months younger than me.
So there was basically just the two of you
Yes,
in
yes.
your growing up dynamic.
Yes.
Well, so did you think about when I was coming up, I didn't know what I wanted to do. The only people I knew who had ever gone to college were school teachers.
Right.
My father never went to college, and every now and then one of the teachers, Miss Walker,
Yes.
Miss Walker. I don't know what she ever saw in me because I was a total loser. I was one of those they call no-comas boys. We were pretty outlawish, and nobody would ever expect the best of us. Most of us were going to end up in jail or something. But Miss Walker used to call me aside from time to time, and she said, "Now, Lloyd, where are you going to college?" And I'd say, college? Why would I want to do that? College is not for me. But she thought I was capable. She said, well, you could teach. And in those days, I wasn't interested in teaching, but looking back, I wish I'd done exactly that. I think teachers are one of the most noble professions that there are. And in many ways, I wish I had followed that course because I do love to teach and, I love to learn. So... But the teachers and Miss Stone and a lot of those older teachers, they took an interest in the kids, and they'd just grab you and sit you down sometimes. What prompted you to be a teacher?
I knew from early age that I wanted to teach. That was just, and I think it was from having good teachers along the way as, elementary teachers and then middle school teachers. I knew by the time I was in the 7th grade, that's what I wanted to do.
Really?
So I graduated from Ernest Ward High School on a Thursday night. And the following Monday morning, I started college. I went to Faulkner State at the time.
Okay.
And I didn't stop. I went summers. I just went straight through and finished my first degree in 3 years.
Where did you graduate with your bachelor's? Did you go to
University of West Florida.
West Florida? Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then it was not long after that. Jerry and I got married one semester before I finished at UWF. So probably 6 weeks after that, after I finished, I started on my master's degree. So I have a master's degree from Troy State.
Okay. In what subject?
Secondary education.
Secondary education.
And then
What was your original degree in?
it was called, at that point in time, Health, Leisure, and Sports,
Okay.
which was a PE degree,
I see. Okay.
but included lots of science and lots of kinesiology and physiology and that sort of thing.
Okay.
Loved it. Loved every minute of it. And then after my degree in secondary education, I went for a couple of years, and then one of our teachers at Ernest Ward said, I want to go back to get an advanced degree, pass the master's. Are you up for doing this with me? Because I don't want to travel by myself. So I said, well, why not? So I went back to University of West Florida with her, and we got an education specialist degree.
Okay.
During that point in time, I was still in PE, but I had decided that I was going to continue with my certification in media science. So that involved going back to University of South Alabama to get recertification. So I guess I'm just a professional student. I went ahead and got all of that done and then moved into the library.
Are you still a professional student? Do you still like to learn
I
new
do.
stuff?
I really do. And I think theater, a lot of times, just plays right into that love. Because if you do theater, then you're constantly learning something, whether it's a new technique or whether it's a body of lines that you have for a new character. So, yes, that plays right into that.
I want to go there because I just can't imagine not being scared to death of forgetting your lines. When you're on stage, now doing a movie, they got cue cards and they can redo takes, but on stage, wow, it
happens. It happens to everybody. But what you have is you have a cast of characters around you who will pick you up.
I see. Kind of help one another.
Yes. So if you're on stage, you got to trust those people around you because they're going to be the ones that save your neck if you happen to forget something.
Yeah. Well, I want to go into some of that, but first I want to visit your husband, Jerry. Went to the same school. You guys did you date in high school?
We did.
Okay, so you were high school sweethearts.
We were.
You've been married now for a good long time.
September, we will be married 50 years.
50 years. You know, back in those days, when you and I were in school, quite often they would have career day or something. They would ask everybody, what are you going to do when you graduate? And so many of the boys in those days would say, well, I'm going in the Navy, or I'm going in the Army, or I'm going in the Marines or something. I bet you 90% of the girls said, I'm going to get married. They didn't say, I'm going to get married. They'd say, I'm going to be married.
Right.
And I don't know what the difference. They would say, I'm going to be married. And there were a lot of those marriages, and a lot of them lasted.
Yes.
I think that's, I don't know if anybody's ever done a study on that, but we say don't get married too young, it won't work out. But I think those young marriages probably have a better track record than the waiting, the more mature marriages actually.
Oftentimes.
It wouldn't surprise me.
I think we went into the marriage with the idea that this marriage is going to last. We didn't go into it with the idea if it doesn't work, we can get a quick divorce. And I think a lot of times young people...
Was that just the general
I think that
idea
was
about marriage then, or
yes.
was it something unique to your family?
No, I think it was a general idea for all of us because all of the people that our age, there were a few divorces early, but that was not quite the option that it is now.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's interesting, and congratulations on that. I think that's wonderful. Again, I know several of my former classmates that did that. Susan and Gary Purvis, Susan passed away not too long ago. They were 50, I think. Yes. I think they ran off.
Yes, probably.
A little bit early, and there were a lot of those. So that's kind of interesting. Now, so you've been teaching. You teaching 38 years. At what point did you decide that you were interested in stage acting? What got you interested in that?
I actually credit Miss Nan Shavers, my 6th grade teacher. She did a big production during the 6th grade, and I thought, this is the most fun I've had in a long time. And that really sparked my love for theater. I did a little bit in college. I did some musical theater in college, but after that, there was a long span that there was nothing available for me. I danced with a clogging group that we did. We had a show team that we went out and did festivals and that kind of thing. I did that for a number of years. I sang with the Sweet Adelines for a while. And then I saw an ad in the Atmore News, or I think at that time it was the Atmore Advance, and it was asking for people to come audition for The Sound of Music. Phil Johnson and Jerry James were producing that particular show. So that was probably, I think, maybe 22 years ago.
Okay.
So I didn't want to go by myself. So I convinced one of my friends, who is about 10 years older than me, I convinced her to go with me to audition. And after that, we were hooked. We've both been involved since then.
What'd you have to do for the audition?
We just had to sing. All we had to do was sing.
Okay.
And we were cast as nuns in the nuns chorus, and it was wonderful. We had a lot of the Mennonite ladies from the area churches, and the chorus was fabulous. So that hooked me right
Just
there.
hooked you right there.
Yes.
Did you like looking out at the people?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Because a lot of people would just be petrified to have to look that away. You know, they say public speaking is the most feared thing of most people. That people are more, on statistics, people are more afraid of public speaking than they are of death.
Yes.
They rather die than do it. And acting, you know, when I lived in New York, I had an opportunity, as I mentioned earlier, to go and see some Broadway plays, which I fell in love with. And I had an opportunity also to see a lot of stand-up comedy. I always loved stand-up comedy, but had never been to a real stand-up comedy until I went to New York. And I used to go quite frequently, and I've seen stand-up comics just, nobody would laugh. And they would like start crying and just run off stage. I mean, some of the newer ones, you know, I mean, when if I'm giving a public speech and I happen to say something funny and people would laugh, well, that's great. But if you're supposed to be there to make people laugh and they don't laugh, that's just got to be scary.
That is the actor's worst nightmare.
Worst nightmare.
Is that you say something that you think is funny that nobody else does.
Nobody gets.
And comedy is the hardest genre. It is the most difficult on stage because comedy is so dependent on timing and just experience of the audience. I mean, because what you think is funny, oftentimes I wouldn't think was funny. So that's the most difficult.
You've done all different types of plays. I know you've done a lot of drama and you've done the music. Did you sing in the chorus in high school? I mean, were you in band or anything?
Yes.
You have a musical background?
Yes.
Okay.
I did.
Okay.
I played in the band and I sang.
Okay. Charles Branch was the band leader,
Yes.
or whatever back in and he was very good.
He was very good.
He really interested a lot of people in music.
Yes.
I've heard criticisms of him, but I think he was just fantastic for our time.
Oh, I do too. Yes.
You know, the interest that he brought in, and there you are now on the big stage.
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say the big stage, but I do enjoy what I do.
Jerry's not interested?
His famous last words were, "I would rather eat dirt than be on stage."
Get on stage.
Now he does work in the theater. He keeps the plumbing going. He keeps the electrical going. He will build and tear down and clean. But as far as being on stage, even to just do a walk-on part, nope, not his thing.
Some of your cohorts over at the theater, Thomas and Juanita McGinty, who I've known for years,
Yes.
Come out of the teaching profession, and I know they're over there almost all either serving popcorn or on stage.
Yes.
Who else over there from folks like started late, maybe? Just maybe they retired, or I don't know when Juanita and Thomas started.
Juanita
I think after they retired.
Yes, Juanita came in with me at the very beginning.
She did, okay.
Yes, but now Thomas came in later. We hooked him later on. We say that once we get you into Gecko, you are sucked into the Gecko vortex, and you can never get out.
Well, I can kind of believe that.
Sure, there's always something to do. I mean, if you don't want to be on stage, you don't have to. You can come and work behind the scenes. You can, help with props and help with sets, help
Clean up and
whatever. Yeah.
Got to be a lot of that going on.
Yes.
What about the rehearsals? Doesn't that consume a lot of time? I've seen so many of these plays that involve so many from the local community. It's not paid. It's all volunteers.
Yes.
I know you have to do a lot of rehearsing.
We normally.
So what about the time that it
We
takes
normally
to do all
have
that?
a schedule of Tuesday night, Thursday night, Sunday afternoons. Normally, our rehearsals will run about 2 hours. Now, the last week prior to show week, that's called Tech Week, and we do every night that week.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a commitment, but I found that you make time for the things you like. We all do.
Do you have a lot of people that come in and drop out because of the? What's the biggest reason people come in and maybe they don't stay? Did they find they just didn't like it, or they don't have the time, or what? You said you're going to suck them in, but you don't suck in everybody.
Not
Some people,
everyone, but most people we do
maybe
keep.
they don't like it as good as they thought they
we
would.
haven't lost. I mean, we keep more than we lose as far as
Really?
that goes. Yes, because once you are with people for 3 nights a week for 6 to 8 weeks, you become more like a family than you do just somebody off the street.
Mm-hmm.
So you build friendships, you build a camaraderie that's
And I would assume those of
significant.
you who are old timers, you've been a teacher all your life, and you like helping people.
Oh, sure.
So when you have somebody new comes in and they're struggling, I mean, you really enjoy seeing them come along.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
mean, you're an old veteran now. I'm sure a lot of the newer, especially maybe the children, would look to you for what do I do now?
Well, actually, I'm the mean one.
Oh, are you?
Yes, I'm the mean one,
You learned
and
that in PE, I bet.
I'm just the mean one. And the kids will come in, and they'll, at first, they're a little intimidated because, of course, you have to be backstage, you have to be quiet, you have to, be in place where you're supposed to be, that kind of thing. So the directors will say, if you're not quiet backstage, Miss Sharon has duct tape, and she will duct tape your mouth. So they all look at me with those frightened eyes, and never have I had to duct tape anyone, but I guess the threat is all it takes.
That's right. It's the fear of the unknown.
Yes.
It's the greatest fear, yeah.
So they learn after the first show that Miss Sharon's not as mean as everybody says she is. So, but a little
Have
fear
you
is
done
healthy.
some directing?
I have done a little. I much prefer being on stage, but I have directed. And
Was
I
that-
like doing that too. That's
Well, I know a lot of the movie stars will gravitate toward directing. I think particularly maybe, I don't know, I heard David Nelson say one time that when he was younger on the Nelsons and so forth, he said, but it got to be hard keeping up my physique.
Huh.
He said it's a little easier being behind the camera.
well,
and
you age
participating in
out.
that way.
You age out a lot of times because at my age, there are not very many parts that are still available for me. So I'm about to
I
the
wouldn't
point.
think that. I watch a lot of movies and I see these same old character actors. They work regular through the years. A lot of them are just fat and ugly, but they're working constantly. Because that's who people really are.
Right.
So I would think there would be a lot of work for character roles. Maybe people would rather have the starring role, but you work regular if you're a character actor.
But this is different here. It's
Is it?
different in live theater than as opposed to television, movies.
Okay.
You have makeup artists. You have people who can make you look a certain age.
In
but
the movies, you
in
mean.
the movies.
In the movies, yeah.
And, but here we don't.
You are what you are.
You are what you are. So
Okay.
there are some older roles that I'd really like to play, but we just
Well,
haven't
now,
made it yet.
You're right now. You're involved with the Monroeville production of To Kill a Mockingbird. Tell
I
us a
am.
little bit about that.
That was something on my bucket list. Every actor wants
bucket
to
list,
see if they can go somewhere else and be cast it's just a. I
They
guess
know
it's-
me here. What would they?
Yes.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
can I hold my own in another theater group or with
Gotcha,
somewhere
okay.
else, someone else? So back in 2020, December 2020, I auditioned for To Kill a Mockingbird and never got a call back. So I assumed that, I had not been cast. And so I thought, oh, well, I'll try something else some other time.
Mm-hmm.
But come to find out, they called me in December of 2021 and offered me a part for the 2022 season. So they had only been able to do, because of COVID, only been able to do 2 shows in the 2021 season.
Okay.
So
Which would have been the season that
that would have been the one that I auditioned for.
yeah.
But they kept my name and called me in December and said, would you like to do it? Which, of course, I jumped at the chance to do it. I said, let me go back and check my GECA schedule and see what's going on up here, because GECA's my first love.
Mm-hmm.
But luckily, it was during the time when there was a children's show going on here, so I was not involved, and that worked out well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a fun.
What part are you playing?
I am Mrs. Henry Lafayette Dubose, the grouchy neighbor.
Okay, the grouchy neighbor. Mm-hmm. I need to go back and read the story, or I need to go down and see it again. I've seen it several times. But.
As Scout says, she's nigh on to 100. So I'm the old lady that lives next door who.
Well, you had to age you a little bit for that, didn't you?
Yeah, it's fun. It's been really fun.
Now, does that run the whole year?
No,
So when
actually,
you tackle a season, is that
actually, this show is about to end. We've got 2 more shows left, and I think we've done a total of 18 shows.
okay? And how long does the show run?
It started in April.
No, I mean,
Oh.
on the stage. Well, what's the time?
Lengthwise, about 2 hours.
about 2 hours. Most
A little
of them are
over,
probably in that
yeah, a
range,
little over 2 hours with a short intermission in the center.
Mm-hmm.
The neat thing about it's done in the courthouse, so you're actually in the courtroom for the second half of the show.
Mm-hmm.
The first part of the show is done outside in the back of the courthouse, where they've built small houses. So the setting is really nice. We have an old pickup truck that brings up the mob to storm the sheriff's office, and we have an old car that drives across when someone's headed to the courthouse, and the atmosphere is really good.
It's a live audience, right?
It is.
It's not filmed. Where do all the people come from? Are they outside people, or are they local people that
They're-
come again and again?
Everywhere. I didn't realize how widespread. They added a specific show for travel writers who are from all over the world.
Really?
So yes, and they brought the cast back out onto the stage, and they were able to ask us questions about ourselves and our the show itself and whatever. And then they were given a tour of Monroeville, and they were given the history of Monroe County. It was really interesting. Governor
Now-
Ivy was there one night with members of her staff. We had judges and Supreme Court justices from all over the state there one show.
Really? Well, I'll be. Now, did you have to go back, and I know you probably read it under Miss Webb or back
Yes.
in high school, but
Yes.
did you have to go back and refresh and reread the material to
Yes.
kind of get into your role?
Yes, I did.
Are you a method actor? I read about all the great actors being that you got to believe you are that person. You got to get psyched up. And I heard Anthony, I don't know, one of the great actors, a British actor, and they asked him, was he a method actor? He said, no, I just act.
I just act. I just act for fun. I mean, I'm not.
You don't go home and Jerry will say, now remember, Sharon, who you are. You're not that person.
No. I do try to think a little bit about that person and the reason behind some of the lines. But other than that, no,
Now, I guess it would depend on the director. I'm just assuming this. But do you get to ad lib if you forget? You have to follow the script exactly, or do they let you ad lib?
You have to follow the script.
Okay.
But that being said, we're talking about forgetting lines or whatever. If it's not exactly word for word, you're pretty good.
Okay.
Most directors will not give you too much trouble about that. But if you're like me, I need for it to be pretty close to what's written in the script, because I need to know that your last line that triggers my next line needs to be there. You know, it needs to be
And
what I'm listening
that's
for.
what you're looking to recognize that will trigger your
Exactly.
line. And
So,
if somebody
if they
changes
don't-
it,
yes.
it throws you totally off.
If they don't give me what I
can see
need
that, yeah.
to respond to, then that makes it more difficult for everybody else.
I remember in my interview with Phil, him bringing that up, because this is just... what do you do when you forget your line? When you just totally forget, what do you do?
You either jump to another spot where you do remember and hope to goodness that the
Of
other
course, that'll throw
actors
the other actor off.
that the other
Right.
actors respond to you in the way they're supposed to respond. That's normally. The worst thing on stage is dead silence when it's not intended to be there. That is a horrible feeling.
Well, I don't see anybody flub their lines. Maybe, I know they must do that, but they somehow gloss over it. I've maybe seen just maybe a tiny bit, but generally I'd never see anybody flub their lines. It's like everybody's perfect. Everybody up there knows their lines, and I've just marveled by that. I mean, this is not New York Broadway. This is old country Atmore, Alabama, and how you pull so many people. I saw my friends Eddie and Melissa Seals in a couple of plays over there.
Yes.
And of course, Melissa's a natural actor, but and of course Eddie's been a musician for years.
Yes.
And they both did really well.
We're so glad to have them come in and do things with us. And now their grandchildren are coming in and doing things with us. And we really enjoy that. We really enjoy seeing those generational actors coming along, one generation to the next.
How do you get these little kids interested in this? I mean, this is something that not every kid would be interested in, getting up on the stage. I mean, how do you find these kids?
Well,
Do the parents bring them in?
Yes, we have open auditions for our children's shows, just like we do for all the other shows. But we try to build on that by having school shows where we bring in schools to our theater and we perform for them. And then at the end, the director will normally say, now, if you'd like to do this, everybody can become an actor. If you'd like to perform with us, then our next children's show will be, and they normally tell them, when it will be or the general time frame that it will be, and just make sure your parents watch the newspaper for audition dates and bring you in.
The schools used to have little maybe assembly day. Remember, we used to have the assembly?
Yes.
And we'd maybe have a little presentation of some type. Mr. Copeland, my kids went to Brat, and a lot of the teachers, it was a lot of work for them, but
Yes.
Mr. Copeland, while he was there, always insisted, the teachers he always insisted they have this Friday morning, and they would have these little productions,
Yes.
and the kids got a chance to participate in a lot of that. Do the schools still have very much as far as school-sponsored plays?
I think maybe the lower grades in Brat, I know, do some productions. The music teacher will help them, and they'll do the spring, maybe a spring production, and then, but not as much. I mean, we're so keyed into teaching to testing, teaching for testing, till I'm afraid we're losing a lot of our arts that way.
I agree. I was talking to Miss Cunningham yesterday. She was over for an interview, and naturally we talked about some of the changes that have taken place. I have always been a prolific reader. And I cut my teeth on comic books. Funny books, we used to call them.
Sure.
I read them on the school bus. If I'd go home with a buddy of mine and he happened to have a big stack of comic books about Spider-Man and Superman and Superboy, I was just in hog heaven. I loved reading those. They were simple and easy to read, but I loved them. And that incited my love for reading.
Yes.
We used to have at Davisville a little back room. It was like a little back closet, which was our library, behind Mr. Horton's desk. And they had a little series of books called the Blue Books, and they were hero books about Babe Ruth and Davy Crockett and Daniel Boone, all the historical heroes. And I love reading those books. I love to read animal books about Smokey the cow horse and
Yes.
Freckles the chicken.
Yes.
And they used to have a lot of books, and so a lot of times I tell kids that kids hate to read. My son, I mean, he hated to read. You'd show him something in the newspaper. Here's an article, Steve, about something happening in your class. What does it say? Well, we'll read it. No, I don't want to read it. And he hated to read. This may be a boy thing more than a girl thing. I don't know, but it seems like boys hate to read worse than girls do. But again, this reading for pleasure, it seems like we've gone in our schools to so many mandates that you must do this, you must do that it has turned into work.
Yes.
They've
Yes.
turned reading into work when it was supposed to be fun,
Yes.
a fun activity. Do you see that?
Yes. And I don't think we have children see their parents read for fun as much as they used
You got
to.
it. That's exactly right.
Because there are so many more parents working. They're working long hours, so they're not at home very often. Once they get home, they turn the TV on, and kids see their parents watching TV or on the computer. They don't see their parents pull out a book or pull out the newspaper or...
Oh, the newspaper. I used to read it. I used to love to get a newspaper and spread it in the floor in front of me and read every word of it. And, of course, I love the comics in the newspaper, too.
Sure.
The editorials. And we're facing a different time now with all of the graphics and computer games
Sure.
and television to compete with that we didn't have to compete with. But do you see this changing? Is this ever going to change, or is reading and... Is that going by the byway? Is it way of the buffalo?
I'm really afraid that it's
Here to stay.
yes, that the computers and there is nothing like picking up a book and opening and smelling the smell of a book when you read. I have a Kindle. I read online. Not the same. Just not the same.
It is. It's not the same. I read mostly on my iPad, Kindle, mostly because my eyes are weaker and I can make the print bigger. Whereas a lot of the books, I just have a difficult time. It tires my eyes out. But now I'm wondering if this stage play, what you're doing, if this might be a tool, so to speak, because you got to read the script. They're not going to go over the script with you. You got to go home and read it, right?
That's true.
That goes for the children too, right?
Yes.
The parents are probably going to help them a little bit.
Yes.
But doesn't that kind of compel them to kind of get back into reading?
It does. And the curious children, and there are still curious children, if their interest is sparked by a particular play, then they might go back and read the book just to see how it matches up. Is it the same? What happens in this book? Is it portrayed in the play? We've seen that happen. Mm-hmm. And we've seen kids who we would announce that we were going to do a particular play, say Jungle Book. We just did that not long ago. And we've had kids come back and say, well, I went back and read that book because I wanted to know, if there was a part in this play for me. Mm-hmm. So, yes, I think it does help.
What's the youngest as far as children that you can deal with on the stage? I mean, it's got to be an age to where it's extremely hard to them
Normally,
focused?
it just kind of depends on the child. There are some 5-year-olds that we have had that did an excellent job. And then there have been 5-year-olds that it was very difficult to keep them corralled. So it just depends on the child. Usually a director has the say over what age group he or she wants to deal with. And usually they'll say between 6 and 7.
I guess some directors probably have their strengths and weaknesses as far as children, and they'd rather work with older people or whatever, too.
Yes. There are a lot of directors that will not direct children's shows. There are a lot of directors who will not direct musicals. So every director has their own.
Are musicals harder? Musicals. Historically, I've always had to be dragged to go to a movie that was a musical. I want to see a drama. I want to see more of a story.
More acting.
But I've come to love, on stage, I love musicals. I mean, I'd rather see a musical than I would a drama on stage. I don't know if that's common.
Usually a musical takes longer to stage because you have, of course, the music and the choreography along with the acting. So usually we allot longer time to rehearse it, to stage it. But and as far as the expense, it's always more expensive to do musicals because they cost.
Pay for those
the
pieces.
Royalties are much more expensive for musicals.
That's an issue that Phil brought up several months ago, which most people don't think of.
No.
The cost of that music.
Yes. You have to pay much more for musicals than you do for straight plays. And some of the straight plays, like the last one we did was public domain, so we didn't have to pay royalties at all to do the last play we
Public
did.
domain. Yeah.
But even the plays we're doing we have to pay per show. And we are billed per show by the number of seats in our audience. So if we had a theater that was, 500 seats, we would pay a larger royalty than we would for a theater of 120 seats.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. How many seats do you have up here?
125 max. 120 is what we try to do because it gives us a little more wiggle room for our audience.
But you generally fill them up, don't you? Most of the shows?
Most shows. We have between 100 and 110, 120, yes.
And who comes to these shows? Or you get a lot of out-of-towners, or is it local?
Well, at first we're we have dealt more with local people, but lately, when we did Beverly Hillbillies, we had people from all over the place come in. Jerry James does a good job of publicity. And,
okay, I was going to ask you about that.
He came up with the idea of doing fold-out table toppers that he put in all the restaurants that had information about the show.
Right.
And we had people who came in and said, hey, we were headed to the casino. We stopped to eat dinner at David's. We saw the information about the show. So we thought this was two women. And they said, we thought our husbands would really enjoy this show. So we went ahead and bought tickets and didn't tell them what we were doing. We just brought them. And they said, we'll be back. We loved it.
People like out of Pensacola?
They were from Gulf Breeze.
From Gulf Breeze, okay.
Mm-hmm. So we've had people from all over the place come. People from Robertson.
Do you guys work with, I know they must have a little theater in Pensacola and probably Mobile. Do you do any joint or collude with them or counsel with them at all as far as what you do?
We have not. No, we have not. We've had some of our theater group go down and do things with Pensacola Little Theater. But I've never had much success down there. I've been down and auditioned once or twice down there and never gotten a part.
Well,
theater.
They probably are like up here, you got your regulars, which
Yes.
you are one of the regulars,
Yes.
and those are the people who are going to be the most experienced and the less work.
Yes.
So it would just make sense that if those people came to be in, they would probably have an edge to
Exactly.
be picked.
Exactly.
And
We
probably
try
the same
not.
way down there,
We try not to do that here. we feel like we try to get the best people for the part, regardless of whether they're regulars or not. Now, that being said, you have to have a person that really shines, because if you're going to give them a major part, you need to be assured that they are going to be able to do that major part. And we have had people who would come in and have just a fabulous audition, and when it came right down to the show, they were a one-shot deal. I mean, the audition was great. We had a young lady come in and sang for us one day. Absolutely beautiful, beautiful voice. She did it a cappella. When it came down to a part, we found out she couldn't match pitch with the music. So we were stuck with someone in a pretty significant role that couldn't sing with accompaniment. Beautiful voice, but just could not hear the pitch to match pitch. So
That's something I would have never in a million years even thought of.
So we learned our lesson from that day forward. You had to sing with an accompaniment, either a tape or a CD.
Well, you
or
probably should have auditioned her with the accompaniment.
We should have.
Yeah.
We should have, but we didn't. We just listened to the
about it.
voice and thought, "Oh, that's beautiful." I guess we just thought she can sing beautifully, so I'm sure she can match pitch beautifully. Didn't work out that
Is
way.
acting, is that a natural thing? Do you have some people that just have the charisma and say, boy, they just got up there and knocked it out of the park? Or is it more, I guess this is like the nature-nurture argument with psychology, but is it something you learn?
I think there's a little of both.
You become skilled at
I think there's a
techniques
little of both there, because I think you have to have that innate ability to look at a line and read it in a way that's believable. So I think there's a little bit of that there, but they can be trained also. I mean, if a director sees that little spark, they think, I think I can do something with this one. And then, yes, there's a lot of training that goes into it. Jerry James is right now directing this show, and his daughter has graduated.
Which one?
It's Fools. It's
Fools,
the show coming up. It's the Neil Simon show.
Okay.
And he has he's been involved with his daughter graduating this year. So he's left a couple of us ladies a couple of nights with rehearsals when he went to activities with his daughter. And his comment to us was, I know I can leave Sharon with this person or with this rehearsal because she nitpicks. And that way it gives her an opportunity to nitpick and get those things out of the actors that are good. And I am nitpicky. I do. I'll go back and make them repeat a line and say, okay, think about this. Why are you saying this line? What are you trying to convey with this? Tell me, how you think this person is trying to get this idea across.
Do you allow actors to interpret their own character?
Yes.
Or are they kind of pushed into what's in the story?
You allow them to interpret,
Okay.
but their interpretation needs to line up with what the character actually is,
Right.
or what the character is supposed to convey. So yes, you do allow them interpretation. And just because I say, this character to me should do this or this or this, that actor still ultimately has the option to do or not do.
I've always enjoyed writing. I've written a lot of short stories, and I've written one novel, and I love characters. That's, I guess, what I love about movies, what I love about plays are the characters.
Yes.
That's what I remember when I walk away. And sometimes in my own writing, I have started to go a direction with a character and realize that I'm writing lines for the character that are not believable. This is just not something that George would do.
Right.
As if he's a real person. This is inconsistent with who he is. And so I have to come back and change things. Do you ever, like in doing your lines in the play, do you ever stop and say, Mr. Director, no, this just doesn't feel right.
Yes.
This is just not what Mrs. So-and-so would do.
Yes,
in my
exactly.
opinion.
Exactly. And a lot of times the director will say, I understand, play it your way. And then there are times when the director will say,
Play it my way.
but you got to do it because this builds on what this character does and this, so yes.
Right.
Blocking a scene where you actually put movement to it a lot of times will help. If
What do
you're,
you mean?
when you put movement to a scene, if you have two characters that just stand still and say a line, it may come off differently than if you have them walk across the stage and stop and turn and look. And, the positioning may change the inflection of the scene. So that makes a difference too.
Phil's daughter, what's her name?
Ellen.
Ellen, who is so wonderful. She sang so good. And
She does.
She's so good in so many of the plays. And I understand. I've been told that Ellen has a business to where she does plays for birthday parties.
She
and so
does.
she'll portray whatever character that
Exactly.
that you want. I thought that was really
That is
really
pretty cool,
interesting.
isn't it? It's pretty
Yeah,
neat.
It is
To be able to-
unique idea.
Yes, to be able to make her love of theater into a business.
Into a business, yeah. How about that? And I understand she stays pretty busy with it.
I think so.
Can anybody do it?
Anybody can do it.
You think anybody can do
I
it?
do believe it. If you can read, and even we've had people who don't read well that can do it. Yes.
But not anybody can sing. Now, musicals are a different thing.
Musicals
gotta
are
have
a
people
little
that can sing.
different. They're a little different.
But sometimes you can have somebody sing that can't really sing. I mean, they don't have to be.
If you're a group, if you sing in a group, you don't necessarily have to be a strong singer. If you can match pitch, you can be taught to sing. I mean, I've heard it said that if you can talk, you can sing, and if you can walk, you can dance. Just takes a little
Maybe
time.
not be the best one, but you can do it.
Well, you don't necessarily have to be the star to be able to be in a group and be, on stage.
Do you look forward to these plays coming up?
I absolutely do.
Is this just something that when you can't wait till the next play?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. When one is over, it's a kind of a letdown for me because I know that it's going to be a while before you do another one. So,
When you play, this goes back to what I asked you earlier about the method acting. The more you play that role, I'm thinking, do you kind of get in, you miss that person when the play is over? Do you miss being that person?
yes, I do. I find myself repeating lines in my everyday conversation that came from a character, So, yes, I do miss it.
It must be wonderful to have all these lines in your head. The great actors, Laurence Olivier, they can quote these lines of Shakespeare because they've done them on stage a million times.
That
And
is
these
not
lines,
me.
They don't get in your head?
That
where you
is
can just throw
not
them out?
me. No.
Really?
No. When we've done shows a second time and I would be playing the same character, I still have to go back and learn lines again. Now, they'll come back easier normally the second time around, but I still have to go back and learn lines. And I know people who have all the lines in their heads and they keep them forever, and that is not me. That is not me. I have data overload. I'm old. I have to clear out data.
Since you're calling yourself old, may I ask how old you are?
I will be 70 years old in August.
You'll be 70 hours. You're a little younger than me. I'm 75 this year. I think you were in the 7th or 8th grade when I was one of the big ones.
Right.
But I do remember you. Have you found, as far as memorizing things, doing what you're doing? I mean, I think a lot of older people, and that would be what would scare me. Am I going to forget the lines? Because I just don't think my memory is as good as it used to be. And, as we get older, we do tend to can't remember things, and it kind of scares us about doing something like that. Does this help? Is this a good brain exercise for you?
Yes. Yes, I'm afraid to stop because I'm afraid I'll
Go-
really will go down. But yes, it is good. It's the brain's like a muscle. The more you use it,
Yeah,
the stronger it gets. So to stay mentally sharp and focused, you need activity.
Do you know, I can remember when I was a kid, we had AM radio. We didn't even have one in the house. We had one in
the car. Mm-hmm.
And we would go out on a Saturday afternoon and open the car doors and lay across the seat and listen to the radio. And I remember my daddy said, "You boys are going to run my battery down, run that battery down."
Yep.
But the music of our period, I still remember the words to all of those old songs, from songs that I heard when I was 13.
It's amazing.
But for the
isn't it?
life of me, I hear a good song today, and I say, I'm going to try to memorize that song. I really like that song. Just can't seem to do it. I can memorize a few lines, but I can quote lines from 50 years ago. Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing.
Now, I'm thinking it's probably, some of my memory issues, sometimes I say, well, if I've got Alzheimer's, I've probably had it for the last 50 years. Because I remember in my 20s driving past my house and had something on my mind, and I couldn't remember to turn into my driveway.
Or go into a room and to get something and forget what you came in there for and turn around and walk out and then have to come back again.
Yeah. Now, some of that has just been happening, over the years, but it seems like, I think maybe we'll worry about it.
Yes. Yes.
I used to live at a house, out in Brad, and of course, sometimes when I go to Pensacola, I go that route down through the Brad Crossroads there, and several times I have absent-mindedly come to that crossroads and turned left, thinking about something. And I'm thinking how close I am to going down and going into my old house. And, one of these days, I may just do that accidentally. It kind of scares me, just go down and walk into my house because I've come close already, of just going in my mind. I'm just thinking about something else. But
lines now are they take longer to learn. They're a little more difficult to learn than they were when I was in my 20s. But it's worth taking that little bit of extra time. The theater group will tell you I am the queen of hidden lines because I can find wonderfully creative places to hide copies of my lines in case I need them. So,
they say Marlon Brando used to do that, put lines on his shoe, and part of the way he delivered his lines was because he was reading them.
yeah.
It changes the way.
Well, I try not to use them, but hey, I am guilty of that, taking them and
Put
putting
right on your palm.
somewhere. No, I'll actually have a prop normally is what I do.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
I'll have a prop where I might have, I think one time I had a knitting basket, and in the bottom of the basket, I had the lines. I never used them, but they were there. I have done a show where some lines are just harder to remember than others because if you're not the person who is driving the conversation and you just chime in every now and then with a random line, those are the lines that are harder to remember because they don't play off somebody else.
Right.
But if you are the person who is driving the conversation and you don't know your lines really well, then you throw everybody else off. It's a terrible situation. I did a show one time with an actress who was the one who drove the conversation. And she was a fabulous actress, but her lines were all over the place. Crazy. So I ended up on stage with a magazine in my lap, which it played into my part, that I could keep up with the lines. So in case she got off track, I could bring the conversation back around to get all the information in that we needed. So that's, one of the tricks of the trade.
Well, I can see how there's a lot of challenges in that, and I can understand why you enjoy it so much. Sharon Poulsen, thank you for coming over and having this interview with me. We're out of time, by the way.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I've
This
enjoyed
always
it.
happens. I feel like we've just got so much more to talk about, so maybe we can do it another time. But the Gecko Theater, if you aren't a fan, if you haven't been going, you should go over. You'll see Miss Sharon Poulsen a lot over there. She's one of the stalwarts of the backbones of what's going on over there. And I have to say this about everybody. I'm just amazed that we could make such a thing happen in Atmore.
And it's
thank
all
you for
because
being
we
such
have
a big part
fun.
of it.
It's all because we are having fun.
Thanks, Sharon. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you.
You have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Lloyd and Friends Show with Lloyd Overton.